Up to this point, we have looked at two number sets. We've looked at the natural numbers, which would be the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And we've looked at the whole numbers, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So those have only dealt with positive numbers. So now's the time that we actually need to start talking about negative numbers. So we're going to be looking at the integers. That's the next number set we're going to look at in this particular section. So the integers are basically all of your natural numbers, all of their negative counterparts, and also 0. So you could also think of it as the whole numbers plus all of their negative counterparts. But that is the set of integers. No fractions, no decimals, nothing like that at this point. Just all these whole values, positive and negative. So integers are usually represented by drawing a number line. I've always seen them horizontal. I guess you can also draw them vertical, but usually it's horizontal. And the negative integers are the opposites of the positive integers. So that word right there is important, that opposite means you're going to be negating or changing the sign. So the opposite of 4 is negative 4. And the opposite of negative 10 would be positive 10. And the opposite of 0, well, 0 doesn't really have an opposite because it doesn't have a sign. So the opposite of 0 is just 0. That one's a little bit tricky. So then the next thing we want to talk about is something called absolute value. You've probably seen this before. But absolute value is just the distance from 0. It's how far is your number away from 0. So the answer to absolute value will always be positive. So here's the formal definition. You can see that we use these like straight up and down bars. That's what that means, absolute value. So the absolute value of a number is just the number if you happen to be looking at a positive number or 0. So this says x is greater than or equal to 0. So 0 or positive numbers. And it's the opposite of the number if you happen to have a negative number. Now, most of the time we always learn that absolute value makes everything positive. It makes everything positive. And then when students see this definition, they don't understand how you could get a negative. But understand what this is saying is it's saying you're going to take the opposite of a negative number, and the opposite of a negative number is positive. So the definition really is saying it's the positive distance that the value is from 0. Just think about it that way. So if we want to find the absolute value of 10, well, how far is 10 from 0? Well, it's just 10, right? That's a positive number, so the absolute value bars don't really do anything here. The absolute value of negative 5, well, how far away from 0 is negative 5? It's 5 steps. So that would be 5. So see, it's like the absolute value bars come down. It's like they slice off that negative sign. Now, when you see a statement like this where you've got multiple things going on, the absolute value bars are going to kind of act like parentheses. So you always want to do absolute value first before you do anything else. So we're going to start by doing this part right here. We're going to do this first. And the absolute value of negative 4 is just 4. So what we have is this negative from the front, and then this absolute value part is 4. So the reason that this answer ends up being negative is because of this negative at the front here, not because of the absolute value bars. And then sometimes you have a little bit of work to do inside the absolute value bars. So if we have negative 2 and we add 6, so negative 2 plus 6 would actually equal 4. So we would be looking at the absolute value of 4. And how far is 4 away from 0? 4 steps. And then you might see some problems like this in your homework also. It says the absolute value of this mystery number x is 2. So what could x be? So it's asking you which values are 2 steps away from 0. So actually x could be positive 2 or it could be negative 2. There's actually 2 answers to this one because there's 2 numbers that are 2 steps away from 0.